All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Samiksha Mehra, writer for India AI and the moderator for today's AI Pe Charcha. I would like to welcome all our distinguished speakers and participants for today's session. AI Pe Charcha is a monthly series which has been conceptualized following the roaring success of the RAISE 2020 Global Summit, which was also attended by the Honorable Prime Minister. As a part of this series, we invite global and domestic leaders in AI to share their insights with our valued attendees, including government officials from the central and state governments, as well as the general public. Our theme for today's session is AI for data-driven governance, and our knowledge partner is SAP. To set the context for today's discussion, I would request Mr. Abhishek Singh to give the opening remarks. Mr. Singh is the CEO of MyGov, President and CEO of NEGD, MD and CEO Digital India, Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. He is an IAS officer of the 95 batch with a diverse set of experiences in administration, managing law and order, and implementing national and state level programs. He holds a master's degree in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Samiksha, and we welcome all those who have joined today in this edition of AI Pe Charcha. And before we begin, I would like to extend my thanks to our knowledge partners, SAP, who have been kind enough to get us some resources, experts, and we have Dr. Martin Klein, the Global General Manager, Public Services, SAP, who would be talking about in his keynote address on AI for public sector, defense and security, postal services, future cities. So a portfolio of use cases for artificial intelligence. And then we will have Rahul Lode, who will give some demo on AI-driven COVID solutions, which will include COVID-19 logistics and simulator modeling, then document extraction for government resource planning, then accounting, invoicing, and receipt and account management. So we have a whole lot of interesting stuff lined up with regard to which are the fields in which AI can be used. And that's the whole idea about organizing this series of AI Pe Charcha events, which focuses on building awareness amongst government entities at both the central government level and the state government level, as also exposing use cases which can be replicated, which can be thought of implementing at various levels within the government. The idea behind organizing these AI Pe Charcha simply means discussion. The AI Dialogue series has been it flows from the event that we did last year, the Responsible AI for Social Empowerment Summit, which saw participation of almost 80,000 people from 147 countries. We had speakers from all over the world, from the field of industry, from the government, from academia, and they all dwelled on almost all sectors which are impacted by AI, and along with that, issues of ethics and issues of responsible AI. So all that was deliberated greatly, and with that, the entire national strategy of AI, the national program of AI that India is implementing has been conceptualized. We are seeing increasingly use cases, applications of AI in the field of healthcare, in the field of education, in the field of agriculture, skilling, and manufacturing. So some examples have been done, and what we need here is to kind of scale up these solutions, ensure that these solutions become more ubiquitous, they are utilized by more and more states, and more people benefit from that. Towards that objective, industry has been partnering with us for organizing these sessions, which aim at capacity building, as also exposing people to what is happening across the world. So we have had partners from within the government and industry who have helped us organize these AI Pe Charcha series. This is the 9th such event that we are organizing. We have had events in partnership with Microsoft, with Google, with Infosys, with the Rockefeller Foundation, with the government of Telangana, and with the Unique Identification Authority of India as also XSTEP. So we look forward to getting insights with regard to practical applications of AI and using AI with for a data governance model, and how we can use it for a decision support system, how we can use it for various applications in smart cities and all. Today's participants include officers from various ministries in Government of India, as also various state governments. So without any ado, I would once again extend my welcome and thanks and gratitude to our industry partners, SAP, for agreeing to partner with us in this event, and look forward to hearing from the experts and the practitioners from SAP. And to the audience, I would request that if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to mention that in the Q&A box, so that we'll try to make it as much interactive as possible to really get maximum benefit from this afternoon's event. So thank you once again, and over to you, Samiksha.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time for being amongst us today and for your kind words and for kicking off what looks to be a very enlightening session. I would now like to welcome our first speaker for the day, Dr. Martin Klein, to take center stage and deliver the keynote address. Dr. Klein is the Global General Manager Public Services for SAP, based in Waldorf, Germany. He's responsible for SAP's end-to-end footprint in the public services industries, driving the company's overall strategy for this industry cluster, overseeing global business in the sector, directing product and solution roadmaps, and leading the go-to-market activities. Over to you, Martin.
Yes, thank you. And can you please confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. So thanks everybody for joining today, and thank you for the kind invitation to SAP to share with you our view on AI in government, and also what we call data-driven government or the evidence-based policymaking. In the next 20 to 25 minutes, I would like to share with you our approach and explain to you why we think that in addition to focusing on AI, Indians should look into how can we use the overall data-driven government approach, including intelligent technologies like AI. I would like to share with you some examples of use cases that we have done with other governments around the globe, and shed a little light on how we deliver AI to our customers. And after that, I'm shared here by my colleague to give you a practical demonstration about this one. When we start with the question why Indian government should look into taking a broader approach around data-driven government and using AI, I would like you to all, before we jump right into the topic, I would like you to all to let's pause for a minute and focus on your individual point of view. Focus on the agency you're working on, the job that you have, whether that's in the core business process of operations in government, or whether that's in an area of support, whether it's financial, HR or so. Think about your agency and what is it that you're driving day to day. And then think about a minute on the importance that data has in that what you're doing, and the importance of data that can bring to improving the processes and the topics that you have. What data do you need in order to get your job done? And what is it that having better data and more comprehensive data and the possibilities to look deeper into the data and have data automated process roboting or something like technologies, what is it that you could help? And that is, at the end of the day, what it boils down to. It's when we talk about data-driven government, when we talk about using AI in government, it boils down to the fact that there is data around, and we need to make the right use of it in order to improve our processes. What we see typically at SAP working with customers are 4 areas of complexity that are challenges to us in public services or public sector. And these prevent us typically from making the best use of the data. And let me go through this in a little step-by-step, not too lengthy, right? It starts with the topic of the situational complexity. And when you think about examples like, let's think about examples like in the COVID pandemic, right? Let's think about examples of other catastrophes that we have been seeing, like think about the wildfires in Australia, or think about the flooding that we saw in the recent months, right? Typically, the world is fundamentally very, very complex. And then the big question is, at the end of the day, how can we as an agency address this and support the situation? How can we, as the agency, think about whether we have the right programs in place, whether we have the right policies in place in order to answer to those topics and create the right services and the right support for our citizens in order to overcome the challenges that we see. And at the end of the day, this complexity is a first angle. The world is tremendously complex, and we need to understand it. We need to make sure, can we really address the situation? So do we have the right policies and programs in place? Can we base those policies and programs on evidence based on data? So that's the first topic we need to overcome and we need to address. How can we handle the complexity of the situation? And the good news is we can this, right? And you see here a quote that we put from Gabriela Ramos from the OECD, where at the end of the day, we say, we know that technology these days can overcome the boundaries between the physical sciences, biological sciences, social sciences, and we can break down those barriers, but we need to take the right approach. It's not about like an individual single use case after use case, but we need to take the right approach with a holistic approach to using data and using AI, right? And that brings us to the second challenge, which we see, which is like the data complexity. And we know that government is the biggest owner from an industry perspective of data. And we know that today, the technological boundaries that we had 10, 20 years ago, when it was about the possibility to store data and to leverage the data, that's no longer a case, right? We have the storage, we have the capacity, we have the tools in place to manage the data. But as a matter of fact, from a legacy perspective, the data that we could theoretically tap into is very often stored in isolation, and we cannot merge it and we cannot make the best use of it. So the second challenge we need to overcome is really the topic of data complexity. How can we bring the data that we need together, and how can we make sure that that is then merged and leveraged in the best way? So let's really think about like, how could we do this? And that's the importance to say, even, or also when we're using AI, it should not be a program like we have seen it so often, not only in government, but also in private industry, that there are several projects running in parallel. We need to take a comprehensive approach and focus on how can we create a single version of the truth. I had a conversation with a federal representative of Germany in our, we call it ITZ, so that's a central IT service organization for the federal government. And that gentleman told me that they're currently running 112 different AI programs in parallel. And as a matter of fact, they realize it's become too many. We have been starting too much bottom up, and we need to take a top-down approach. And it shows you a little bit about like what we need to do here. We need to make sure that we take a comprehensive and holistic approach going forward. And that brings us then to the point of the analytical complexity, because when we think about what do we want to answer, there are several questions we need to address. That is like the first thing is really the descriptive. What happened? To get an insight and an understanding of that. But then it's important to not stay at that level, but to go to the next point and say, okay, so what is the root cause? We see some things happening here, but can we understand why that was happening? And then the next question is going to be, can we predict what's going to happen next, or how we can prevent it from happening the next time? And then it is the perspective thing in terms of what do I need to do? So first off, understand what happened. The question is the reason for it, the root cause for it. Can we predict how it's going to be happening again, and what can we do? And this is the third topic of complexity, where again, you see it's not sufficient to have single projects in isolation, but at the end of the day, you need to take a holistic end-to-end approach to overcome this. And then there's a fourth layer to that, which is, from our point of view, often the most difficult and challenging hurdle, which is about like the cultural challenge, right? That we call it the people complexity. And it's not only that we need to, at government, look into, do we have the right people with the right skills? It is also about a cultural thing that we need to overcome, because we are committed to our existing processes and we are committed to our agency. But at the end of the day, if we want to kind of create a better good here and really take a comprehensive, holistic approach for using AI in government, we need to collaborate, and we need to look into how can we kind of share data across the agencies, and how can we make sure that we have this comprehensive view on things. And that means also to not only focus on data scientists, which we certainly need as an expert. It also means like we need to focus on other roles in government, which is, for instance, data architects. We need to focus on the virtualization and visualization experts. And we need to have the business analysts. So we need to have a comprehensive set of different domains that we need to focus on when we want to take this approach. And a lot of what is going on here needs change management. It needs change management because it's not about only kind of bringing new technology into the organization, but it's about like transforming the organization into better understanding what can be done, how it might impact the way we currently work, and how it will benefit each and everybody in the organization to improve the work. So these are the 4 complexities that we typically identify when we're working with customers. And if we stopped here, presumably everybody would kind of be a little bit frustrated or drop the hats because we think, could we even solve those challenges? But the good news is, and that's like the next part I want to do, is like, we want to give you a little bit of examples of what we at SAP have been doing with customers around the globe, around AI in government and use cases with machine learning and government. So it can be done. And the first step I need to do here is to show you something which is our strategic framework that we use when it comes around data and government, right? And that is available. I cover it very slowly because it's a broader framework, but it's documented in a white paper that we are happy to share. It's called Real-Time Data-Driven Government, where we explain those approach. And at the end of the day, we focus here on one thing that we want to achieve. And you heard me talk about it. It's a single version of the truth. It's about the sharing of data. It's like one view of the world, a single version of the truth. And if we want to achieve this, then we have 3 strategic functions that we need to address. The first one is the mission and the citizen operations. So really like the core processes of government. The second one is the internal business operations, so the support processes, I mentioned it, finance and HR. And the third strategic function is really the change management. How can we set the overall strategy? And we use this framework when we work with government and customers to help our customers to define their strategy and their most important objectives when it's about AI in government. So let me give you a few use cases that we used. And the first one here is from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, so the state of Pennsylvania in the US, with whom we have been working on a couple of administrative topics. But one thing we really wanted to address, and I want to stick out here, is something that we call risky spend. And that's a use case where it's about if government procures, and typically this is a big item in each of government agencies' budget, is like the procurement and procuring things. And obviously there's always a question on, is everything going all right, right? Are these processes, are the procurement activities that we're doing, are they compliant? Can we make sure that nobody in the organization is trying to use a process to do something that is not right? And what you typically do if you want to approach something like that, what you do is you take a stock sample, and you take a random sample, and you check that sample whether all of the procurement activities that have happened in that sample were okay. And based on that, you do the calculation then with kind of probability and so on and so forth, that you say, okay, that gives you an indication on how compliant your procurement process is. Now, the issue is obviously with that you never know like how good the sample really is. And here is what we did then with machine learning and AI in that case, where we took the data from the 27 agencies of the state. We combined the data and we built a machine learning model to train the model to identify, based on the different criteria, to identify those procurement transactions that have a higher likelihood or a higher risk of being non-compliant with the existing procurement policy. And based on this outcome, then all of these were comprehensively tested. So it's a full analysis or full control of pre-selected by machine learning procurement activities rather than doing a random sample, with the effect that you have a much higher probability of identifying really the ones that have been fraud or uncompliant rather than the ones that might be there by a random sample. One topic I wanted to mention here is an approach that we typically take with our customers when we're working with them on such problems, is we start from the business side. It's not about like we have the fanciest technology and this is where you can use it. It's about like start from the business side. What is the business problem that you want to use? Then you take the next step and say, let's do a proof of concept. Let's go ahead and take a smaller sample and let's do a proof of concept. And then once this is successful, The next step is like, okay, let's go bring this into production mode. And in this case here with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the solution that was created in this context is even something that we now have as a standard solution in our offering jointly with a partner by the name of TLSC, and offering it to other customers in the market because it's something that's ubiquitous, relevant for our customers. Let me go to another example, which is closer to, geographically closer to India than the US, which in this case is the Office of State Revenue in Queensland, the state of Queensland in Australia. And this use case is something that we call debtor insights. And here you see, this is not only about like improving an operational process, but you see here highlighted on the higher left on the slide, then also the topic. This is also then led to a change in the policy that was used. And this use case is about predicting amongst the taxpayers, which are the ones that will likely fail to pay their due taxes on time and will become debtors. You typically, at the government, if somebody doesn't pay his bill, her bill, or doesn't pay the taxes on time, what you do is like you send a reminder, and then you send a second reminder, and then you might send a third and final reminder, and then you send a legal notice. So you're kind of chasing, if you will, your revenue or your income or the money after the fact that somebody hasn't paid. With the Office of State Revenue, we changed this approach and we said, let's predict based on historic behavior, the payment of individual taxpayers and address them prior to failing. So what we did with the machine learning algorithm here is like based on not only the agency's data, but again, cross-agency in the state of Queensland, plus available third-party data around demographics and so on and so forth, predicted a model or built a model and predicted which taxpayers will likely not pay on time. And that then kind of was able to not only predict who's not paying, but you remember the different complexities of analytics, right? We were also able to predict certain pattern there. And we were able to predict that there are some taxpayers that are not paying the taxes because they're really short on cash and money. So they would be willing to pay, but they don't have the funds available at hand to do this. Whereas we were able to identify there are other taxpayers who have the funds and they could pay, but they are playing the system because they know they could pay right now, or they could only pay in 6 months' time because they know that you're sending a first reminder, second reminder, third reminder, and only then it's getting harsh because there is a legal notice coming. So they're playing the system, right? And based on that, then several actions were taken. First of all, the policy was changed, and that's what I mentioned here, right? Because for the ones that were identified that they're not paying in time, they wouldn't get a first, second, or third reminder. They would immediately going forward get a legal notice. That's one thing, right? But the other thing is that it's also their government is not there to punish. Government is there to support and work with the citizens. So for those that were predicted to likely not pay because of shortage in cash, they were proactively being addressed and approached and were offered certain things like how they could be supported by government. So a payment plan, for instance, was proposed and these type of things, right? So using the available information to change the policies, but to also work there to support the citizens. And with that, you could argue the complete model of what the tax agency did was changed because it was no longer about like running after the fact and collections, but it's more about like cash management and predicting and proactively addressing the topics. Queensland Office of State Revenue use case, again here, started with a proof of concept in one sort of tax, that was a land tax, successfully proof of concept, rolled it out in the land tax area, and then extended it to other tax areas too. So same approach. A third use case I wanted to mention very short here, just to show you that's a different angle. It's about KPIs, and this one is more around like also public safety, something which we did with the state of Arkansas in the US, where we were predicting prison recidivism. So it was a case that is, and this is an important topic here also, something that was also debated with the customer, but also within SAP internally with our ethical department or ethical council to make sure how are we using AI here? And this is the right manner, because it was about like predicting who from prison inmates that are being released has a high likelihood of showing criminal behavior again. And obviously you don't want to kind of put people into buckets. And obviously you don't want this to then have a decision on, is somebody getting parole or not? So it was a clear guideline and the red lines between the customer and SAP, how this is being used. And it was not being used to whatever change decisions or so. It was being used to identify those citizens that have a higher need for social workers once they have been released from the prison, right? Who need a better care and better treatment to kind of get back into the society. So an interesting use case here, completely different what we typically have. It's mostly around finance and procurement and so on and so forth, but really another use case showing you the breadth of this. And that brings me then to another example. And here, unfortunately, I must not give the customer name because this is so far not an official reference, but it's like with a government in Europe where we, different than from the other ones, taking a very, very broad holistic views. The other ones you saw, those were some individual use cases that we shared. Here we are with government really taking a very broad view on how can across the entire government, all ministries, all agencies, AI and machine learning be used to improve the daily work, right? And we're still in the exploration phase around the main use cases. They are currently revolving around things like robotic process automation to increase the efficiency for finance and procurement. It's around machine and situation learning to reduce manual efforts. And it's also around conversational artificial intelligence to increase the ease of use of things. But at the end of the day, it shows you like if you take a broad approach across several agencies or so, the breadth of the use cases is broader, but you have a couple of advantages with that because you can kind of roll it out to more agencies immediately and obviously can benefit from economies of scale, right? Just to show you like one example where we're currently in a project with the customer to explore this. And that brings me to the third part of my presentation, which is like, how does SAP deliver this artificial intelligence to customers? What are we doing here? And here I would like to show you one slide, which is a little bit more technical, but it's at the end of the day, like a very high level architecture of what SAP is offering to our customers, which starts with the infrastructure where we have our own data centers and our hyperscalers. It starts with our technology platform, and that's an important point I come to. And then we have the application layer where we have on the one hand side our what we call our intelligence suite, our ERP product, and then on the other hand side, the industry specific solutions. And you see here two things on the slide which are important. The first one I mentioned already, it's a technology platform, and the second one is the topic around business process intelligence. You need this business process intelligence because you should always start from the business side. You should kind of look at your processes, take a holistic view from a business side, not kind of looking at what's technological possible, but kind of what are the issues that we want to solve. And then you can think about, okay, so how can we do this and prioritize it? And we at SAP have several areas in which we deliver artificial intelligence to the customers. One is our intelligence suite. Our standard applications have AI built in. So if you have a finance solution or an HR solution from SAP, a certain amount of AI is already built in when it comes to whatever handling or processing of payments, or when it comes in terms of handling of CVs in a recruiting process or so. So there are certain AI, if you will, like out of the box built in as a solution delivered. The second point is that we have those industry cloud solutions, either by SAP or with partners, where we're focusing on the industry core elements and processes. And also there, we're delivering AI solutions out of the box, if you will. And I mentioned two of them. One is the risky spend from the example from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And the other one is the work we did with the Office of State Revenue in Queensland. We also led to a standard application that we're offering as an industry cloud solution. But then the important piece here is what we call at SAP the business technology platform. That includes our AI technologies, whether that's like machine learning, whether that's robotic process automation. These technologies are built in. And this is a way we can also, with customers, start to build individual use cases for the customer. And as I said, right, a proof of concept in a first step, and then bringing that into production. So it's not limited to our standard offering of applications or industry cloud, but it's built with the technology that we can focus individually on each customer. And that brings me to the end of my presentation, and just want to kind of close down here with like what makes SAP unique. I think a couple of things I want to mention. The first one is really the thought leadership. We have something that we call the SAP Institute for Digital Government, based in Australia. And what we're doing is work with academia on topics that are relevant for government, specifically when we focus on AI. So we have done jointly there with the university a research paper, for instance, on explainability of AI. If you have those machine learning models, if you have those artificial intelligence models, and these models kind of lead to a decision because they say you should do this or that, right? This is something that needs to be able to explain to the people that are using it. And you need to explain it to the citizens, because otherwise, if it's a black box and you don't understand why it's happening, that's something that's important. We are focusing there on the topics of ethics in AI. So that's an important thing, right? The second topic, what makes SAP unique, we have, as I mentioned here, several public sector focused solutions available, whether that's the behavioral insight, the audit and risk management, standard solutions for public sector, proven by other governments that you can use, right? And then the important point, I mentioned it several times, we are working with customers in a co-innovation mode. So we have something that is called the AFI Factory in the business technology platform. So we are collaborating with our customers on cross-LOB use cases and scaling those. So it's really this approach like, let's start with the business fundamentals, let's start with the business projects and problems, let's prioritize those. And let's see like, how could we address those in the best possible manner. And the last point I want to mention here, which is more on the technical side, but obviously one topic that is always important when it's about using AI in government is the topic of the data and the data security, but also the topic of the personal data and the protection of personal information. And there are certain things that we deliver out of the box. And one thing that we do have here in our business technology platform is a topic of the data anonymization. So we can use AI in a way that it's still secure and data privacy is being secured for our customers, which I think is an important topic, as important as the topics of ethical questions in AI. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I thank you for your participation here, and I'm very much looking forward to questions that might be there.
Thank you so much, Martin, for your presentation. It was indeed very insightful. I was diligently taking down all the notes. It has been it's been a great learning experience for me as well. And we do have some questions in the chat box. Balwant Singh says that in India, there is often a difference of infrastructure according to states, in the sense that some are more advanced than the others. So can a general AI for a data-driven governance be sufficient for all the states of India? I think he's trying to ask whether you can have the same model implemented everywhere.
I believe that from a use case perspective, you certainly can. Obviously, then the topic of do you have the right technological infrastructure in place distinguishes a little bit about like how fast can you do this, right? The experience that we have with SAP, since we are using our business technology platform that is open to third-party technologies, third-party vendors. It's not kind of closed technology. It's relevant only for SAP. So from that perspective, in general, the possibility to work with the existing infrastructure and existing solutions is always there. Yeah.
Right. But do you also think that the data collection needs to be specific to the use case?
Yes. Typically, experience shows that the data that you need for the use case is somewhere there in a department in the government. And it's then always a question a little bit about like how can we access it, right? And that's something we see around the globe, that everybody wants to see other departments' data, but is a little bit reluctant in sharing their own data, right? And we have one example, for instance, with the state of Indiana in the US, where we had the same situation, and it required a mandate from the governor, like with a legislative order, to say, I want you to share the data into what they call the management performance hub, right? So that we can have the benefit for all. And the approach that was taken was to say, like, the data is still being owned by the individual department, but they need to share that in a certain common structure. So typically, the answer to the question is like the data is there, and it's just a question of getting access to it. But we typically have it stored somewhere in government.
Right. One of the attendees would like you to elaborate a little more on the data anonymization that you mentioned. And he has a more technical question wherein he asks, what are the anonymization techniques and whether they're agnostic to data type?
Okay, so I frankly have to admit, I cannot tell you the answer the technical questions. Maybe Raul will later on can, so that's a point. But the data anonymization is really about, like, you have a citizen and the citizen has certain attributes. And so when you do these type of these analyses, let's stick with the example of OSR Queensland, right? When you want to predict how certain behaviors and certain patterns are, then in most countries it is like an opt-in by the citizens to be allowed to use this, right? So you need to anonymize the data between, like, what are the relevant criteria, the data set, and who is like the owner of that data, and with the address and the phone number and this kind of stuff, right? And the data anonymization is really about separating this, but also being able to merge it again. So because typically when you separate it, then you might not be able to merge it afterwards. But if you want to kind of leverage the inside out of it afterwards, then you need to be able to kind of bring it back together again. That's about it. Yeah.
The bottom line is to have enough data for research, but at the same time protect the privacy of the users, right?
Yes.
Imran Sufi wants to know, what is the IT readiness required in the government sector with respect to availability of data, and in what format for the implementation of AI-based solutions? So IT readiness for the government.
I think that's very, very difficult, because there is not the scale of 1 to 10 on IT readiness. At the end of the day, even with legacy solutions and mainframe solutions, what you always can do is create some sort of a data hub or a data lake where you kind of pull out the data and put it into a new system to make the analysis and so, right? I mean, obviously, if you have an operational system that's cumbersome and old, then to use newest technologies on top of the system is difficult. You typically need to then extract the data and see that you run this into a separate system. But from my point of view, that's not the big issue, because when I look at some of the use cases that I explained, that was anyhow the starting point, right? We started with a proof of concept. You do a data kind of transfer, and you work with the data, and then you come to the way on how you might change processes, or you might kind of change policies and so on and so forth. And that's the case when you think about, okay, if we want to do this in operation day by day, what would we have to change in the system?
Okay, thank you. Irfan Ahmed wants to know, what is the benchmark for using AI in any state government or a UT? For example, in terms of connectivity and in terms of online working of government businesses. I think it's similar to the IT readiness for a government, but he wants to know specifically what are the requirements for connectivity.
I have to admit, I cannot answer that question, right? Sorry for that.
Yeah. Anil wants to know, what are the software models that your company provides for collecting raw data and for converting it into information data?
Plenty. And many of those, maybe Raul later on will cover that. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, our business technology platform is an open technology where we also include part of open source technology. And we have plenty of APIs and data formats that can be used. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, maybe
Balwant sir,
I can just add
yes,
to
please.
this question, as there is a solution that we talk about data intelligence, and there are different solutions that we have. So it's important that the data been stored, and in case of government, there has been, I think, a lot of data and raw data been there, but until the time it not massaged well, it not have the right cleansing done on the data, it's not useful for using for any intelligent operation, or we can convert that into the information at the same time. So there are the I would say, as Marty said, there are many other models available, but again, specific to the need that you have. One of them, strong one, that I would say, the data intelligence, data hub, data warehouse cloud. That's something which SAP point of view is a strong offering, which help you in getting data from structured, unstructured, stream, your on-premise cloud sources, bringing them together, because that for matter for the I would say it's more like the raw data. But when you blend them together in a modeling way, you can do the different kind of operations on top of it. You cleanse it well, you create the rules, you create algorithm on top of it, and then merge and blend them such a way that it would feed to your machine learning model for a quality data. So these are some of the techniques that we have. During my presentation, I would touch upon some of them, but I'll be more than happy to share more technical details on this as well later.
All right, of course. I think we will save all the rest of the questions for after Rahul's presentation. And now I think it's time to request Mr. Rahul Lodhe to give his presentation. Rahul is the Senior Director of Engineering and the head of the SAP AI Foundation in India. He has 20 plus years of industry experience and has been working with SAP Labs for more than 18 years. He has played a key role in multiple tech-driven initiatives during the COVID-19 crisis as well. So Rahul, it's over to you now.
Thank you. Thanks. It's my honor and pleasure to be part of this honored discussion. I just like to share my screen. Can you confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, excellent. I've been, since the topic is kicked off for AI Pe Charcha, I'm pretty excited to see, and also I've been seeing the different discussion in the past series, and today I think we got opportunity to represent SAP in this forum. We'll again talk about the generically how the data-driven governance possibilities that been there, but also my personal experience to make it possibly implementation of couple of projects with our customers, some part with governments as well. Would share my experience here, but nevertheless there will be a lot of maybe interaction that we get afterward. To start with, we would covered upon the couple of topics, and let's get into the main topic. So firstly, I would start with our honorable Prime Minister, who started this movement of the AI in Government of India pretty strongly. I mean, he's always a very, very thoughtful leader, and a lot of edge on the technology. We get inspiration from his motivation as well. But importantly, the mission and vision that India has set for to be being the global leader in the prosperity and well-being driven by the artificial intelligence, but also it's converted onto the mission that way that India will create the policies, programs, and nurture across the industry ecosystem in order to perform the complete AI to be emerge and flourish. And I think this is one of the example that we had the many the AI-based initiative and with our ministries, and this is one good initiative where we have open dialogue between the state governments and central government working really on this challenge versus this industry, bringing them together. What SAP did in this side as well to, I think we're back in last year, just before we started COVID crisis, we created a kind of a AI artificial intelligence document called the Roadmap Document for Government of India, creating the digital intelligence India, how we can make it. And the key topic that kind of we try to touch upon in that document was looking at the opportunities that India has, that how they could able to support it very well, there is also the overall vision that how India can be done, but not only that part of it. It's also given with lot of examples. It's like big 40-page document, and it could be shared, I think, later on with all of you as well. Which also give lot of the examples from the different industries. So we talk about healthcare, we talk about governance in the challenges that we are facing at the government, and what kind of a solution that can be provided, possibilities you could achieve using this AI. There's also been a look at the sectorial view based on some of the analysis and the historical data we put very specific for the India context. And it also talk about the opportunities and how we can prioritize some of the use case that we can bring for the for artificial intelligence for the larger sectors and the state government could be look forward to. It also shows about different examples, things been happening around the world, and how it can get benefit, but also look at specifically to India to take the advantage of AI and how we can be more efficient in our governance processes and completely create the ecosystem as such. So maybe later on we could share this document also with you again, and maybe have a your point of view as well. But it's one of the pretty thoughtful analysis been shared in the past. Looking at during the COVID times, especially from SAP Labs India point of view, as we are being a very strong about 9,000 development team here. We also been involved in kind of building some of the solutions during the COVID time. One of them is the COVID city skill simulator, which we worked with the ISC and ITFR together, which is focused on the making how when the initial phase of the COVID was there in India, how it could be look at using the different simulation model and calculate how the virus could be get spread across. And this being a exercise quite actively done with Professor Rajesh from ISC's team. I think I also saw in last discussion he's been also talking on touching upon on this. And this particular simulator, I could maybe quickly show you through is there. So it's a prototype of it. There was another one which has goes into more detail, but basically this built in such a way that it could leverage for the upcoming epidemic situation as well. And use the agent-based simulation technique. So typically, we kind of enter here the city. So it has to be mapped for the city, and it uses the I would say the agent-based simulation technique, which is more like how we look at the individuals are located in a particular city and their houses and the areas at community center, and basically the infection rate could increase when there is a more movement happening among the individuals, and it takes the different parameters, and this also can provide you the more detail that how many days it need to increase the disease as such. So it's a kind of provide you the different aspects, and the intervention can be done, but it would help in creating this kind of ecosystem where you could do run this on a regular basis. And the war rooms, especially it's been also piloted, I believe, in the Bangalore war rooms, and in Mumbai it's been also been taken care many times. But it simulates and tell you how the progression of a disease could happen, and kind of get ready on the different scale to get your medical facilities to get ready. So this is something that one of the topic that we worked upon. The other topic that we focused on also using the machine learning models is about the logistics situation. So, and this is being used with government of Karnataka during especially wave 2. It was quite effectively used. We worked this along with one of the startup called SpyKK. And here we were trying to solve the logistics problem, the logistic where how during the pandemic time when the lockdown is on, how the vegetables to be moved, how the different life requirement to be moved across different cities or within the city also, or across the countries, and how what is the right way to look at supply demand situation, and algorithm would look at it, that what is the right way of looking the resources allocation and the stock, and depending on the the right right percentage to be given to it. It always look at it the transfer cost, lowest possible way, and how it can reach to the higher infected destination, and how it can release some of the supplies can be to go with the different routes, because we had limited supply at that point of time, but there's a lot of demand coming on different places, so it's not fair that we do distribution directly, but this model was pretty effectively used during the logistic distribution at that time. So these are and there are many more examples, but I would then come back to the current situation where we have been now looking more into the AI as a technology, and how we make it more happen from the governance point of view. These are some examples that we put forward. As Martin touched upon in SAP BTP program, we look at it as such the business processes, how it get impacted, or how we give them the more important way of bringing ground up to optimize the business processes for the main corporate function. But it's very important that we look at more as the enterprise AI solution, and I think that's what you would, when any state government or any the central government point of view or UT point of view, you are thinking of building a solution. It's not a POC that we should look at it. We should look at that. What is the enterprise artificial intelligence? That's something we can build it. So the difference between the enterprise AI is something that you would try to think of from end-to-end point of view. You would look at different solutions that you have prepared to the data side, how it get productize it, and how it get to the include into your end solution and provide the business value as such there. And you have to always think about how we can make it to be consumable for the enterprise IT. Otherwise, if you just look at the building the solution, which if there's no data behind it, or there is some bunch of Excels that we get, is always can be make consumable solution. But the consumability of end-to-end comes when your data pipelining as well as the front end is being connected together to make it happen. To look at a little more deep dive, how we could look at from product strategy point of view as such. And these are the different solutions that typically the organizations could have. And I mean, it's mainly coming from SAP portfolio, but I would believe that if you look at every state government, it's also been one of the unit, right? And everyone has a strong IT infrastructure, I would say. Now, mostly, I think in the context of India, we still have on-prem and the cloud infrastructure as well. But there is a network. We have the industry cloud, some of the solutions that we use from different enterprises with the hyperscalers, like the solutions that we also have a lot of them on-prem, and they're like many of them depending on how we invested at some point of time. And also there's a business process intelligence that we have. In order to make your AI strategy, more importantly, the solutions data that you have, it has to transform into data strategy. So first thing that you have is your product strategy that you have already built, and that's something which you already have with you, right? And now to look at from the AI strategy, how we can bring them back from the AI point of view. The first important part is that you look at that one domain model. And when we say one domain model or the industry domain model, there's something where how can I get the data from my current solution, or how this data is interlinked with each other. And that data I could move to my data strategy, and my data strategy would have with the kind of data pane or your data lakes. You have the different techniques to data anonymizing, data, I would say DPP solution, data protection and privacy to be taken care there. Data governance has been taken care in this phase, but you have to think as the holistic way how my objects are interlinking from a business or my product strategy point of view, and they are moving to the data lake. And that's a valid question that we discussed before, that how can I basically get my raw data to be moved to the meaningful information, and this is where exactly your raw data comes from, where you have many applications who are generating data, and they are moving into the meaningful the data way. And once your kind of, I would say, the data strategy is complete, then you have to think to bring your AI strategy in place, because without the data pane, or without having the your data has been planes, the AI cannot be successful or cannot be available for the enterprise readiness aspects for us. Very importantly, because the once your data is feed to the AI, it can generate the numerous value for your organizations to be successful. Uh, there is also another way of many people do it, and that's where you see many of people approaching to. You see that you just give me data in the Excel format, just give me data into the CSV files, and I could make it happen for you. I could able to have the right output to be given to you, and show how the model can be make the magic with this data which available in the Excel sheet. It can make it. Then all POCs that everyone has to see the value, but you can be only successful when your data is seamlessly flowing from the your applications, and then getting to the data strategy, and solving all your data cluttering problem, and the same time the same data flowing into your AI strategy. That is to make your AI assets and tools make it workable. Otherwise, the Excel sheet data, creating model, creating the right inference, showing the value is very short term thing unless you are not getting that things back. And very importantly, this has to be infused this data back to the business processes, because that's where the impact has to be shown, and the value has to be shown. So this is the kind of the complete AI strategy that anyone is thinking of adopting for a single use case, or maybe the whole transforming and getting the value of your different use cases. So the only point solution, if you think it, you might not able to realize the value, but the moment you think from the enterprise AI perspective and look at how to complete the cycle with thinking on all these three aspects together, I'm sure you will have a better chance of succeeding with adopting the AI for your organization. There have been a lot of solutions which are already successful for the AI. Which typically definitely is coming from the SAP world, but these are the many solutions that SAP been given. And for example, the sales order automation, which being a typical task, takes a lot of time, been automated heavily via workflow automation. There's a service ticket intelligence automation. So we can imagine the tickets has been raised, and I think this tickets been raised for a support in governance. Also, there have been many tickets been raised, and how this ticket can be automatically assigned to the right component rather than this waiting time can be reduced. Financial account reconciliation is another important part, and we are going to see that in one of the demo that I will show, that how that been pretty well managed now. But the reconciliation is another important activity which is been challenged now. So let's dive into the demo part of it quickly, and look at that the first maybe demo around the reconciliation. So the reconciliation is always a cumbersome problem. You have to do reconciliation on a very regular basis, and how this been solved simplifically, I would say, using the machine learning. That's something that that we try to propose here. But it's again every government has the reconciling on very regular basis, like any organization does it there. It's always you try to match your actual accounting with the cash flow that's been gone, and how you can generate the balance sheet so easily. So with that, I would just get to the demo part.
Rahul, I think this was supposed to have audio.
Yeah, this should be have audio definitely.
I don't think we can. At least I can't hear any audio here. Can the participants
share computer?
Company documents on a daily basis.
Can you hear now?
Yes.
As a reconciliation accountant, you open the reconciliation status overview to check the reconciliation status of your companies. The matching status for company 1010 is initial. It means the document matching has not been executed. You can then navigate to the balance details to check for any amount differences. The detail screen shows there's a total difference of $233.44 between company 1010 and 1710. So you navigate to the Manage Assignments app to check for more details regarding the difference. There are too many items that haven't been reconciled yet, which makes it hard to spot the source of the difference. By choosing the button Auto Match with Machine Learning, the system matches and reconciles the items automatically. This should make it easier to identify where the difference comes from. A matching job is launched. The system first runs the rule-based matching and then sends the remaining unassigned items to the AI service for further matching. Let's look into the details of the intelligent processing in the next chapter. The intelligent processing is executed when unmatched items either have hidden information or cannot be processed using manually defined rules, like text and some descriptive fields. The unassigned items shown in the two tables above will initially be matched based on rules. Then, the remaining unassigned items will be sent to the ICR service for machine learning inference. The ICR service uses SAP AI technology and runs on the SAP Business Technology platform. It infers the matching result from the model, which is trained with the company's historic intercompany match data. After the inference is completed, the result is sent back and displayed in the Manage Assignments app, where the end users just need to click a button to let the magic happen. The entire intelligent process can be monitored in the Machine Learning Monitor. You can check the training and inference status. When the status turns to Result Received, you can check the inference result in the Manage Assignments app. As an end user, you usually don't need to check the status in the monitor. You simply click on the Check Results button, and once the inference is completed, the result is displayed in the table below. Matched items are grouped into assignments. The assignments at the top of the list are generated by machine learning, while the other assignments are generated by the predefined rules. Let's select a machine learning generated assignment to check its details. You can see that the machine learning gave a confidence ratio of 87.9%. This is probably due to the similar line item descriptions and the matching amounts. With the differences being identified and adjusted during the period, at the period end close, both the reconciliation accountant and manager would be pleased to see everything reconciled and green. Let's see how the variance adjustment works. There's an assignment generated by Rule 1040. You can see it has a variance of $233.44, which is exactly the difference we saw at the beginning. By clicking Process, you can trigger an auto-adjustment workflow to clear the difference. Now let's switch to the Reconciliation Manager role. The manager receives the approval request in his inbox where you can approve the amount variance adjustment. As a reconciliation accountant, you can see the workflow is approved and the adjustment posting is performed automatically. So now when checking the reconciliation status overview again, you will find that all intercompany documents of Company 1010 are now assigned. The reconciliation close status is all open, and you can confidently close the reconciliation for all its intercompany transactions. You do this by clicking the All Open status. On the reconciliation close statement page, you can check and compare the details of Company 1010 and 1710. The amounts of both sides are further broken down by reason code for a more in-depth analysis. The overall difference is now 0, meaning there is no difference after the adjustment. Therefore, you can finalize the reconciliation statement and submit the close request for approval. The Reconciliation Manager receives the reconciliation close request in his inbox and approves the reconciliation statement. Now you, as a reconciliation accountant, can see that the reconciliation statement between Company 1010 and 1710 is now approved and closed. Follow-up tasks like consolidation elimination can now be carried out. That concludes our demo of intelligent intercompany reconciliation with machine learning.
Yep. So isn't it little cool? So the benefit of being using the machine learning in a reconciliation process is typically it uses this say the operation cost for the month end reconciliation that typically goes on in speed of your the operations, automating the labor intense matching work, because I'm sure anyone who has been involved in the reconciliation processes knows that how much it times take to make it this balancing activities done. There are some of the possibilities that can be done. It's something which we can think of it and build it there. Build it there. It's not the offering from SAP for all these operation of reconciliations that we have, the one that we provide from the accounting side, but this budget reconciliation, GST reconciliation. There is a lot of other activities that you can imagine, and but how the machine learning. So the idea of showing this demo was to, you can possibly imagine how it can be made easily based on the historic data which was being provided, and looking at the some of the generic atoms that are available in the data and the conflict being raised. Only those conflicted atoms can be reconciled automatically using the machine learning. But the possibilities can be many more for your specific use cases. Let's look at the second demo. Is again reconciliation of the TCS system. So just to give you a quick background, is this GST has the digital compliance service, which been given in the India for I think pretty long time when we had the GST and been launched there. The solution is provide the purchase invoices, reconciliation between the invoices captured in the systems. You could have maybe potentially the ERP system available for that. But invoice to be uploaded to the GSTN system by the supplier, and the accurate reconciliation, and to provide all the purchase orders or invoices to be taken care. It's it's all the purchase and invoices necessary to claim to get the maximum input and the credit. Thus, for the supplier's point of view, the solution is completely automated. So, typically in SAP GST system that we have called a DCS GST solution, where the invoices could be pushed to the system. It will again get pulled from the government system, GSTN system directly, and they get reconciled together. And here we are trying to use the machine learning technology to see that how this can be done more effectively, and as simpler as the using the just shortcut, where you get just saying that trigger the reconciliation, and how this can be make it enable here in the easiest way. To achieve the compliance there. So current problem scenario, there are multiple clicks and the manual checks required, and the chatbot-based solution make it very easily to adopt it. So maybe we can quickly look at the demo as well. This demo doesn't have a voice, so we go to the typically the GSTN solution. And then, you put the typical invoice which you wanted to be have for a particular taxpayer. Look at the invoice types; they would get moved, and then you could see the canceling been happening there. And now there is the different invoices that you see. We go back to again the GSTN system. And then now we invoke this chatbot. So this is the chatbot that you see in there, and you just say that run the reconciliation for the B2B, right? And once you run the reconciliation, provide the detail, it's triggered in the background directly the process of how it can be automatically they taken care, and then you see it's initiated as well at the same time, and you can again go to the chatbot and just say that it's been there, and then you just say reconciliation status, and you would get the status that we initiated directly. So it's a quick way to show that how chatbot can be used in the reconciliation process in our GST portals, and we don't need to do a lot of activities there, which taking the multiple clicks and the lot of effort goes in that side. So it's one of the example where how the future of interfacing going to happen with the workflow automation, and as well as having the providing this TCS payment. And there are again multiple use cases in the state-wise or looking at the different ways that how it can be adopted using the AI and the kind of chatbot interface where you can reduce the multiple clicks or automate a lot of systems out there. This is the another one more demo that that we look at, and it's I think one of the exciting thing that you will also see there. I would let first run the demo, and then we look at what the possibilities could come in the state governments or central government for automating these processes. I just want to check, you can able to hear voice, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Emilio Mattei. I'm today's CEO of Leverton. We have a team of 55 people on the ground. Most of the people are sitting here in Berlin, but we also have offices in London and New York. We are now partnering with companies like SAP in order to scale our technology on a global basis. In the area of machine learning, you have a subpart called deep learning. Professors have been writing for about 15 years, and it's using a structure that is similar to the human brain. We now have the powerful algorithms from deep learning that allow you to pull data from completely unstructured documents. Anything within an organization is basically documented. You have employment contracts, you have insurance contracts, you have credit contracts, you have articles of incorporation. These documents contain data that is completely unstructured within these documents, so you don't know where a change of control is drafted in a very long credit contract. You abstract the information from those documents in order to feed them into an ERP solution, such as SAP. But that is a purely manual process. You would need people who have bilingual capabilities in order to abstract. We have entirely digitized the process of document abstraction, and our machine learning algorithms allow you to not only classify the document for abstraction, but also automate the extraction itself in order to create structured data that is then consumable in one language. You can feed structured data into the ERP solution that is coming from a lot of different jurisdictions. And we integrate with the SAP system and populate the data in the system also on a continuous basis. Once you have basically fed the data into the system, out of the system you can always track the data that is coming from the documentation. So you click in the ERP system on the data, and you're then directly navigating to the relevant section of the document where that information was taken from. SAP and Leverton have created a joint approach in order to help organizations to faster address this large accounting change. Applying machine learning is a capability that's truly important for large corporations, because the better they capitalize machine learning, the more efficient and the better they will be. Corporations have to understand that machine learning doesn't replace things, it's just making things better.
Yep. So it's not not advertised for Leverton as such, but it's just to show the possibility how the unstructured data using machine learning and deep learning can be extracted out of the old documents that we have. And if you look at it, we have many old documents. I think in India, you look at the any office that we go for, there have been tons of files that we have, and that's the data which is very important for us to either keep the record or either those data can be turned into the value where we can do the machine learning on top of it, and then make it the very use for the historic reasons to predict what we can do with the future, the better way of it there. So the idea is that there are the technology been advancing in such a way that you can extract almost each and everything from the data that you would have or you see, and at the same time you could very easily transform them into the kind of structured way from it. So it's a type data. Even there's many software available now to do the handwriting data conversion as well there. Even in India, there are many startups being inventing into this side where you can have a handwritten document in a particular language can also be transferred to the digitized way. And this could help us in getting to the more faster, getting to the digitized way for our different operations as such. And based on this the information that we extract from there, we'll create again the good data bank or data lake, I would say, which we can use for the forecasting for the future aspects. It's maybe for the taxation, it could be for the our jurisdiction or court records, it could be the policy. But you're the expert that, and you know where all the possibilities can be go of extraction. I just want to demonstrate the technology being there and being advanced such a way that the data extraction is or document extraction is just becoming easy day by day with the a lot of deep learning models which has been there. To summarize discussion, I think the intelligent technologies are definitely reinventing the businesses, and we see these are some of the examples that are there, and there are many more examples. Because of time, we could not able to show you many things, but there are many more examples that we are improving the business processes and disrupting each of the areas using the machine learning and AI, as well as the in manufacturing and other areas as well, the HR, manufacturing, healthcare, everywhere there's been advancement happening. What what I want you to take away is that the looking at when you look at the processes which are happening within your organization, you could look at it, which are the processes you can do automate, and not that every process need a huge amount of data or historical data to make it. Process automation can be a very easy task nowadays with the IRPA kind of a solution, the robotic automation kind of a solution that been there available. And then looking also as the dynamic analytics, which is kind of proactively analyzing and giving you the unfamiliar patterns that could help you to get the newer insight from your historic data. And you should always, this all machine learning and AI should be used in a such a way that what business benefit you are getting end of the day. Either one way that you're automating the processes by saving the amount of time for doing the process, but other way is that how I can new opportunities. I'm saying what the new areas where I could serve serve the citizens pretty well. And this insight can give you a lot of more take it to the new level. And the interaction that we see is one of the simple solution that we saw how the chatbot can be used the this GST reconciliation process, and that's a way forward for it. You see now Alexas and a lot of the Siri and many of these chatbots been becoming the part of our lives, right? And it's been just about to there for discussion, and the user experience that you want to interact with the system is going to get fade away very soon. It's just you wanted to have command to the digital assistant, and it will do the work for you. And that's what the citizens also would expect, that the governance system also could be become a little more efficient from this perspective. And we have to always look at the next generation experience is not the very cool UI or very good UI, but it's more like the Lex Click or more like the chatbot based solution on the or the voice or messaging solution to the interact with the systems very soon. With that, yep, I think I have to conclude my solution, my presentation, and looking forward for the good questions.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for packing in your extensive experience in this very comprehensive presentation. What I especially enjoyed was the demos of the AI solutions that you gave. I think someone wanted to, earlier on in the session, someone wanted to know about some India-specific use cases, and your presentation has covered that as well, whether it was the GST chatbot or the point that you mentioned about document extraction being used for passport seva, etc. So some of our questions have been answered, but there are more questions. Someone wants to know, how can AI be implemented in the field of cybersecurity?
Yep. So there has been a lot of improvement, or I would say this is one of the theme of AI. If you look at the top trends in the AI, which personally I also write a lot about it and also study a lot about it as well. So this is one of the top trend of the AI, where the AI being used in the cyber securities. And there are the algorithm which been built with the looking at the pattern of the kind of the attacks being get formed or attacks being coming up there. What are the new kind of attacks can become? How the algorithms of attack can become a more smarter and more complex layer of the abstraction can be added on top of it. So these algorithms to basically monitor the attacks that's been done with the hackers, I would say. and how to preempt them. So looking at the historic data, historic pattern, the way typically attackers trying to attack the systems or trying to look at the vulnerability into the system, there has been a lot of data been get gathered and the logs get gathered, and that has been one of the way to monitor that, create the algorithms, and create the solutions on top of it, or raise the alert that you can predict it, saying that okay, if this is the pattern which someone is creating the attack, because when someone hacking your system in the cybersecurity, you create the logs in underneath, and this log can be immediately analyzed under the algorithm and train the model to create the prediction on top of it, which can propose you the solution to stop it. So this is the one of the very happening stream, I would say, of 2021. This has been added also the AI in cybersecurity, and a lot of exciting work happening on that side.
Yes, I think we don't have time for many more questions, but there's one that I would definitely want to take from Balwant Singh. He wants to know, how can AI help to expedite the implementation of policies and schemes for a government so that the burden doesn't pass on to the next government, given that the time is limited to 5 years for any government?
Very interesting
Very vast
question, and very valid question, I would say. As far as the government concerns, the first thing we need to look at it, the policy adoption, right? And when there's a product policies come, they have their windows for the adoptions. Now, if you look at it, and being I am also the one of the consumer of the policy, I'm not a maker of the policy, but the consumer of a benefit which comes out of the policy. I also love to have what has been planned should be get implemented in the 5 years. First part is the digitization of the activity. So we reduce the many processes, the automation of the processes using the AI, which is very important. That's what we touch upon on our last slide, right? So today, any policy adoption and implementation has all these factors, because some of policies are financial based policies, some of the policies that we have, which is more like making the infrastructure kind of projects that we have. Some places we just have some of the grants are there and make it reach to the poorest in the country. And all these projects or policies has to be digitized, has to be automated at the level, because I think as soon as policy comes to get it realized itself, nowadays I think with the efficiency we have been doing things much better way. But there are a lot of operational activities that happen and delays in the process to reach to the implementation of it. So implementation should start earlier, and automation is the key for that. Looking for the opportunity from the past activities been happen on that particular policy. We can also learn, as Martin shared, right, with the different governments and different countries, how they're adopting these policies and how smartly we can adopt the technology to make it happen. This is something that can be taken it pretty faster way. But all the operational activity, if you automate at the first place, I'm sure the adoption and implementation of policies can happen much more faster, and we can finish that into the stimulated period of time. But more than happy to engage later on also on these conversations and maybe share my experience there.
Yeah, of course, we've almost run out of time, but if I could request Martin to take one last question for me. When I write for AI for India's National AI Portal, I cover skilling. And you said in one of your points about people complexities that there is excessive focus being paid to data science skills. But what are some of the other skills that you think should be focused on as well?
I think I mentioned it, right? So first of all, we need to have the right business architects in place, right? It's not only about leveraging the data, but it's looking into like the broader architecture when you apply. It starts with a business. So business analysts that look into that and think like, what is the focus we're going to have, I think is certainly required. And then there's this one topic. All of those AI programs typically have a dramatic change in the way we do things and we look at things. So anything that can support with the change management for me is fundamental, right? I mentioned this example of the Queensland tax department. They started 1.5 years prior to the rollout of the program with the change management to make the organization aware of the possibilities. It's an educational topic where people need to understand why it is, where you need to answer the questions, where you need to tell them this is not about making jobs that currently performed manually redundant. This is about helping us improve the quality of the work we're doing. And that means then like there will be other things that need to be done thereafter, right? And so it's about also then reskilling and upskilling in the organization. So change is certainly very, very important.
All right. I think with that, we have come to the end of the session. We've run completely out of time, but if there are still any more questions, I would encourage the participants to send them in, and we will ensure that they're answered by the panelists and sent back to you. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Martin and Rahul, for taking out the time for being with us, sharing your insights and answering our questions. I would also like to thank the audience for joining us and engaging in the discussion and making it a meaningful session. Thank you all, and we shall see you again in the next edition of AI Pe Charcha. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.